Gene, we've settled into a decline of 22% on this name. No bounce back yet. Is this warranted?
Absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth. No bounce back, because the call has not comforted investors. I think Julie's setup is right. If you just take that in aggregate, what you're seeing is a company that has a very loyal base, but their behavior is changing. On top of that, you have some changes with Apple, the impact of Apple, and also Sheryl Sandberg mentioned some regulatory headwinds that are going to impact some revenue growth throughout 2022. That is a different scope than what they outlined when they reported their September quarter, to expect some of these changes to have a quarter impact. And so the simple takeaway is that investors really need to step back and think about what this means. I think for the next 6 months, it's going to be challenging for Facebook really to recapture investor enthusiasm.
Gene, no question about it. But if you believe in the metaverse, like I think you do, and if you believe that Facebook's probably at the forefront, which I also think you sort of do, I mean, we saw a similar move we talked about at the top of the show. The summer of 2018, the stock went from 207 to 125 from July until Christmas Eve. And then you saw the subsequent bounce. I mean, I think we're setting up for the same type of thing. This started, we topped out in August. It's now February. Probably get another month or so of sideways action. But I think people might come to the realization that, you know, we took a lot out of the stock. They are at the forefront of the next leg of what is going to be the metaverse, and maybe there's an opportunity here.
I think there is ultimately. I think it's going to, as I mentioned, take a little bit for this to play out. And just to kind of put a further detail on what you're describing is this metaverse. It's still a little bit ambiguous of what that means. Even Zuckerberg says that vision is still to be defined. But what powers that is their profitability. If you look at their ad business, they broke that out for the first time. They have 50% operating margins. It's hard to make excuses for companies when they're doing what they are doing today. So I want to be careful there. But I do think the facts are the facts. They've got a very profitable business that can benefit to the metaverse. I am a believer in the metaverse. I think that Facebook is going to be a participant in that. I don't know when the stock is going to be rewarded for that, because not only are they trying to build this metaverse future, but they're also trying to navigate a change in behavior. And I think when you put it all together, I think that they will be successful long term, but it's going to take a few months.
Yeah, I mean, focusing on the real life business, it's got to be job number one for Facebook ahead of the metaverse. But Gene, I'm curious, you mentioned 6 months for investor enthusiasm to rebuild. What happens over 6 months? I mean, do you see revenue growth speeding up? Do you, I mean, what are you seeing that will get investors excited? What catalyst?
Well, at this point, it's a stabilization game, and there's a have and a have-nots with FANG. If you look at that's very clear is that Apple, Google, Microsoft, I mean, these are the foundational ones. If you look at what's happened with Facebook and Netflix, and I think what we're going to see tomorrow with Amazon, I think there's this rift, and you need to first establish that you're not going to have any negative surprises. This is the second quarter in a row that we've seen that from Facebook. So to answer your question, Melissa, is that the first and foremost is they need to make their numbers. That is, I think, a positive. I think that would be viewed as a positive. And I think they're setting themselves up for that. But that's going to take a couple quarters, really, for investors to believe that this is sustainable, because they're going through another shift, a major shift in terms of how they're monetizing, moving from stories to reels. And that's a big deal. So the simple answer is you got to make your numbers. They're not doing that right now. It always takes longer than you think for them to navigate out of these downturns.